never fucking had it.
Shut. No way.
Never fucking
No
had it.
way.
Like, Austin, you trying to sell something else right now?
All that experience, all that emotions, all the things that happen in that one life is boiled down to what we call instinct. And that's the only thing we can bring over to the next life.
You won't be hanged. You'll be canceled.
Coincidence? Coincidence? Coincidence. There cannot be three.
Hello and welcome back to the Collective Minds podcast. This is a short but special episode we have for you today. We have with us today our beloved Jay and a special guest, the man, the myth, the legend, the supreme leader of all the shirtless wonders of the world, our boy Nathan.
Aloha.
Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah,
Why do
my
they
name's
call you?
Nathan. They call me the Shirtless Wonder. I earned that nickname because it's so damn hot here in Honolulu that I just have to walk around shirtless. So 90% of the recordings that I do in our Telegram group end up me being shirtless. And it's funny because I got featured on an Instagram account of a, kind of big name out here in Hawaii. I made a video and of course I didn't have a shirt on. And the comment section was eat me alive. They're like, put a damn shirt on, you hippie. And it was great. So it just my reputation precedes me.
And we really appreciate it. You also look a lot like every single guy that ever played Superman, too.
Yep.
Every single one of them. You have some
Well,
attributes. Yeah. So, yes, the Shirtless Wonder. Today, Haunting Sasquatch. And I do got a couple questions before we start because Nathan does have his own story. Very interesting story indeed. All right, Nathan. So, question one, what do you think about the Sasquatch topic?
Well, it's fascinated me since I was a child. Living in the state of Washington, up near the border of Canada in Bellingham. My dad, we'd always drive back and forth between Walla Walla, which is on the southern border of Washington, and Bellingham, which is up in the north. And so, of course, we'd go through Snoqualmie Pass, and my dad would always tell me stories about Sasquatch. And just to keep me, from getting antsy in the car, he'd be like, oh, there was one right there. You just missed it. And, me and my sister would freak out and try to look all over the hills for it. Ah, darn it, you missed it. So, it's kind of been part of my life, whether, jokes or stories or movies. And I'm sure we've all seen Harry and the Hendersons. That was a big kind of influence for me growing up. And I've always just wondered, there's got to be more to this than just stories. And so, yeah, I think Sasquatch absolutely exists. I think it is more than just an ape. And yeah, I don't know. I believe. I'm a believer.
Oh, me too, man. Yeah, living in the Pacific Northwest, I mean, it's everywhere. You go to a store, there's things you can buy with Sasquatch on it. It seems like every other town on the coast seems to have that stuff. There's brands of Sasquatch. There's the jerky. Jack Link's beef jerky. Those commercials are hilarious. And then, of course, there's the original video of them, which is really interesting because it's pretty much impossible that it was faked. Yeah, I mean, I've lived here too my whole life, and it's definitely a cultural thing, and it goes back hundreds, thousands of years. I mean, they've been drawing stuff on caves, not just here, all over the world about it forever.
Totem poles.
Oh yeah, the forest people, the hairy man.
Mm-hmm, the wild man. Well, and even if you look at like when you drive up into like the Blue Mountains outside of Walla Walla, you have your mountain rest stops and gas stations, and they got their Sasquatch foot castings and all that kind of stuff up there. So it's hard to imagine that thousands of encounters, thousands of people around the world who have no connection to each other are all seeing the same thing, but making it up for what? So they can be ridiculed by all their friends and neighbors and etc.
Oh yeah, hundreds of thousands. Yep. And we were talking about this the other day. It's, if you look at it, it's the same thing with the ghosts and the aliens. And that's kind of where we came up with this trio, is they use the same kind of tactic to, get rid of the conversation on all three, which is these people are crazy. These people are hillbillies. These people are poor. These people need money. These people, saw this. It was something else. It was something ridiculous, whether it's a balloon or a bear walking on 2 feet or some sort of lightning bolt thing or weird noise, something.
Sure. Or what were you smoking? Were you under the influence?
Yeah. Right. For real. So, to that nature, what do you think they are, or where they came from? Or you don't have to have a definite answer, but if you have anything sort of like that, like what do you think they are? If they originated here, or where they possibly came from?
Well, I think they're probably the missing link. I think they've been around at least as long as we have, if not longer. If you really want to go down the rabbit hole, there is a part of me, and I don't have any kind of evidence to back this up, but there's a part of me that believes that if some kind of extraterrestrial being or God, or who knows, but maybe we are, humans are a hybrid of this Sasquatch creature / extraterrestrial kind of being, and then we've been seeded onto this planet. I guess I could sound crazy by saying it like that, but ultimately what I'm trying to say is I think they've been around for equally as long as we have, at least, and I think that they're more human than animal. I think there's something to be respected. There's people out there who think it's beneficial to be whacking on trees and hooting and hollering throughout all hours of the night. And, if that works for them, more power to them. But I think that these beings are smarter than that, and they deserve to be revered more than that. It's almost kind of like mockery when you approach it in that manner. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think there's something to be highly revered, and they've been around for quite some time.
Yeah, Steve from How to Hunt likes to say the only reason that it's mainstream to go out hooping and hollering and smacking sticks together is to get people to think that it's an ape and to continue this big old circle of thumb in your ass, not ever finding or doing anything or changing anything,
Yep, chasing your tail.
What was it, like 90-something% human and then a tiny percent something else, unknown or something that it was?
Oh, that's right. When they do the DNA. Yeah, that's right.
Very interesting. So, third question, why do you think the government hasn't exterminated all of them, but at the same time is hiding like the true facts about them from us?
That's a good question. If I had to guess, it's probably because, well, why haven't they been exterminated? I don't know. I think that they probably are essential in some way, that they've made some kind of agreements, perhaps. The reason why I think that they're being kind of hidden from us and people who see them are being discredited is probably because it would kind of unravel the whole story, and the trust in the government would fall apart, because we'd realize if they've lied to us about this, and if we figure out why they've lied to us about this, then what else have they lied about? It's like I said earlier, perhaps it's the missing link, and
right.
Maybe it'll explain a lot more of our own backstory. And there's money in these things like organized religion and big government and big pharma. And if we realize that we're somehow related or connected to these beings, and we see that they have maybe some kind of extrasensory abilities, then maybe we'd start asking, well, what happened to ours, and why don't we have that same? It would open Pandora's box if we were to find out the truth. And I think people are starting to.
I always think that's a weird question people don't ask, is if they want to hide them so well, why don't they just take them out? And I think
just wipe them out.
Right. And I think the answer for that in some way, no matter what way it is for some reason they can't. And that's pretty much what you said, is whether it's they need them or they made a deal, or maybe they physically can't. Yeah, it seems like
that's a great point.
Right. Because if you want to hide something, you bury it.
Right. We know the government's good at doing that. Look at John F. Kennedy.
Look at Epstein.
Look at Epstein. Roswell, New Mexico for the aliens. They want something gone. They know how to make it disappear. Sometimes not all that well, though.
No, it always comes up, right? They always dig a shallow grave, it seems the government does.
But when you asked that question just a second ago, why don't they just wipe them all out? For a minute there, I was kind of scratching my head and thinking, shoot, why don't they? But you're right. Maybe they just can't. We hear all these stories about Sasquatch suddenly disappearing, tracks suddenly just stopping, and only seeing half of the Sasquatch, whether it's the top or just the bottom. It's just like all these anomalies related to this subject. So yeah, maybe they just can't. Hopping walls into nuclear power plants and crazy.
And then you hear stories about people shooting them, like they can be killed to some extent. So you'd wonder what's going on there. Then you hear there's some feral ones, and then good ones, and it's just weird. It's almost like they have some agreement, but how good agreements goes with governments. I'm power hungry and very interesting. So I know you have a story about a Sasquatch encounter, Nathan. I'm sure everyone is very interested to hear this. Actually, I love this story. So if you want to just take off and tell us, we'll sit back and we'll listen to it, man. Let's go for it. Okay. Full send.
Yeah. So I'm ultimately making the choice to attribute this to Sasquatch just because of the place, the setting, the different things that we experienced. And, when it happened, I was not as much of a believer and open to it as I am now. I, of course, believed, but I wasn't researching it like I am now. So when it happened, it kind of just left us all scratching our heads. Rather than beat around the bush anymore, I'm just going to jump right into it. So a group of friends and I would say there was probably 8 or 9 of us that went up into the Umatilla County forest. And I actually can't even remember the exact place we were at, like the name of it, but we decided to go camping one weekend, and it was going to be an overnight ordeal, and we were going to take some magic caps. As a group, we were going to do this group spiritual experience. And so, yeah, we did. We went up in the afternoon and set up our camp, and we all dosed, and we decided to kind of just wander around until things started kicking in. And it's kind of strange because a group of people out hooting and hollering in the woods, just having a good old time. But anyways, so we were out in the woods. We turned on some music. We lit a nice big bonfire. We started roasting some weenies on the fire, and I would say about maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night, sun's down, fire's roaring, and people are getting pretty messed up. And I was pretty coherent still. I wasn't gone by any stretch of the imagination. And all of a sudden, we're all sitting around this fire, and I see on the opposite side of the fire, behind my friend. So you have like a fire glowing and then like the forest line. So you can see the fire glowing off of the trees. And just inside the tree line there, I saw what looked like, really, it looked kind of like Harry and the Hendersons, like Harry from Harry and the Hendersons, but not quite the same, but had that similar, structure, body structure and facial features kind of thing. Anyway, so at first I'm like, oh boy, wow, am I like tripping or something? And I started getting this mind speak in my mind. And it was telling me to keep an eye on my friend. And it wasn't words. It was just like this instant understanding, like you need to watch your friend. And, one of the 9 people, I'm going to keep his name out of this for, his own privacy, but he was getting a little crazy. And what he did is he pulled his beanie over his eyes, and he's holding his hands over his face, and he's just cracking up, wandering around next to a fire. And I didn't even notice this until that mind speak kind of experience hit me. And so I turn and I look at this guy, and he's fumbling towards the fire. And right then this mind speak came back and said, stop him or he's going to fall face first into the fire. And I tell you what, it was like cat-like reflexes. Here he comes. 2 more steps, he would have tripped over a log and fell right into this huge bonfire we had going. And I was sitting in this, kind of lawn chair thing, and I just sprung up like a cat, jumped over the fire, and I shoved him backwards as he's about to go in. And, he falls on the ground. I'm on top of him, and I'm like, bro, are you okay? And he's like, what's happening? Oh, my God. And I said, you almost stepped right into the fire. And so, that was kind of the first weird thing. I was able to shrug it off because we're all out there partying. And, I thought maybe that's what it was caused by. But anyways, so, we get him picked up, and we continue on with the evening. We're having a good old time. And it's it's now time to start unwinding. People are starting to come back to reality. And so we all go to our assigned sleeping areas, two people per tent, and then me and my buddy in the back of his truck. And he was actually sober. He was going to be heading out to the military, within a couple weeks after this event. So he was sober as a priest. And so we're all laying in in our sleeping spots. And next thing you know, the truck rocks like back and forth, like hard, like rocks back and forth. And, we kind of rock in there, and I sit up and I'm like, what the fuck was that? And my friend who's sober jumps out of the truck first with a flashlight, and he's yelling. He's like, well, who was that? What happened? Thinking one of the people in the tents was screwing with us. And then, I come out right behind him, and I'm witnessing everybody coming out of their tents. It's not like we saw someone dash into their tent really quick. Everybody was just as confused as the rest of us. And keep in mind, I wasn't thinking Sasquatch at the time. I wasn't like, oh, let's look for footprints and handprints. I just thought someone was screwing with us. But now it's starting to get weird because everybody's looking just as confused as the rest of us. So we go to sleep. Everybody eventually falls asleep. We go back to back to the truck. And the next morning when we get up, we all come out of our tents, and the 6 people that were in the 3 different tents are all talking about how somebody was throwing rocks and pine cones at their tents, and they were asking who the hell was doing that. And they thought it was us because, we got our truck rocked, so they thought maybe we were retaliating. And I'm like, no, we were all sleeping. And the best part, the thing that kind of validates this story and makes it more than just you guys were under the influence, blah, 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 is we had somebody there that was sober who saw everything. I mean, from me jumping over the fire, he didn't receive any mind speak, but he saw me jump over the fire and kind of push my friend out of the way. He felt the truck get rocked because he was the one in there with me. And then he was in there with me, and obviously it was not us throwing rocks and pine cones at everybody else's tent. So we're all, putting the puzzle pieces together and just kind of asking ourselves, like, what the hell is happening up here? And Umatilla County Forest, in case, there's people listening who don't know this already, is well known for having Sasquatch sightings or some kind of strange experiences up there. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that that's what took place. The next morning, again, we didn't go investigating. We didn't look for footprints or handprints on the truck, but those 3 things adding up, basically to me, something was happening that night. And for me to sit there in that lawn chair and see what a Sasquatch, essentially, it just validates the story or the experience even more for me. So again, I don't have any definitive proof, and there's going to be people who are going to say, well, you were under the influence. Of course you. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know who all out there has done magic caps or not, but seeing Sasquatch is not a typical, experience when you're on that. So, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's more validating to me that I saw that and tie those 3 things together than somebody telling me, oh, you were just under the influence. So, yeah, that was it in a nutshell. That was my experience. Relaying the story, it's kind of one of those you had to be there things, but it was significant.
Absolutely, man. This is actually one of my most favorite out of the thousands of stories I've heard about Sasquatch experiences, which I fully believe is what you encountered. It's very compelling. It has all the attributes in it. It has, you saw something, right? Then there's the mind speak. Then there's the rocking at night, the troublesome messing with you. There's the pine cone throwing, and I know you said you weren't looking for footprints, but Sasquatch is very well known as not leaving any when it's doing stuff like that. That's right. I'm sure you guys would have noticed them. But
oh yeah, especially having to, pick up our campsite the next day. We would have come across something like that, I'm sure.
You would have been like, what is that?
Yeah. Well, and the thing that kind of shocked me, I guess, and I could go into a little more detail, is when I'm sitting, down in this lawn chair, essentially, it's a little more comfortable than a lawn chair, but, a fabric camping chair. I'm sitting there looking across the fire. You can see the fire glowing off of the tree line, but I could also see the fire glowing off of this Sasquatch. And I would say it was at least 8 feet tall. And it was standing so perfectly with the tree line that unless like you could have stumbled around that campsite and not noticed it, but because I was lined up so well, it was almost as if it wasn't trying to conceal itself. It was almost trying to reveal itself to me, but at the same time, not enough to step out and be like, hey, guess who's here? You know, it was almost like, I see that you guys are out here having fun. You're not out here raising hell. Let me help you. Let me save your friend from essentially ruining the rest of his life. Because that's where it all started, was watch your friend. And then I turn and I see Ding Dong, you know, stumbling directly towards the fire. And this is a freaking 5-6 foot bonfire. We're all sitting. We got 9 people sitting around it, you know. So he would have fallen right in, and that would have been a horrible experience. So yeah, to go from that to, you know, drawing my attention to him, to then stop him, to me stopping him, I mean, that was awesome. It was a damn good thing it happened.
I feel that it showed up to stop that, which is very interesting that it knew it was going to happen. However, afterwards, I think it knew it was playing games with you, or maybe a younger one was playing games with you because it knew what was going on. However, I think I have a question that no one has probably asked you. I think it's a really important one, which is, did you ever feel fear that night?
Not at all.
That's my point.
Not at all. Even when the truck was rocked, of course, we thought someone from the tents was screwing with us. And when we jump out and see nobody's out dashing away, it was a little strange. But like I said, I wasn't deep enough into this topic to where I was like, oh crap, this is a Sasquatch, you know, or this is something's happening up here.
Somebody.
Right. Yes. And I didn't even think like, oh, a bear or nothing. We were all in a very good state of mind that night.
That's awesome. It has everything to it of a Sasquatch encounter. Not all of them, you know what I mean? Because some are very negative. This is a very good one, and it has so many attributes of it that literally says you're part of, you know, the club of no return.
You're part of the club of no return. And it was nice because it was almost like we were welcome here. And when you say like a adolescent, or, you know, like a younger Sasquatch kind of screwing around with us while we were trying to get to sleep, that's what I've always thought too, because that's what you hear about these younger ones who like to throw rocks and they're never hitting people. I mean, you don't hear about people getting hurt by these rocks. And you know darn well, if these things, like Steve from the How to Hunt channel says, if these things wanted your number, you wouldn't even see it coming.
Oh, and no chance. Yeah.
Right.
You'd be gone and done.
That's right.
That's awesome, Nathan. That's awesome. I love that story so much. Like,
thank you.
It has everything. There's so many hidden things in that sequence of events that just line up with everything.
Sorry to interrupt you there. The more time that goes by, the more, you know, you start putting pieces together. And since then, I have reached out to the other people that were there and said, do you remember this? Am I misremembering? Am I, you know, making stuff up as time has progressed? And the 3 out of the 9 people that I've talked to about it all have validated the experience and said, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And so, you know, because there's part of all of us, I think, that wants to dismiss it, you know, as exciting as it is to say, oh my God, I had an experience, or I think I had an experience. There's another part of you that, unfortunately, because of the way society operates right now, we've been conditioned to discredit not only others, but ourselves. And so we're sitting here thinking, okay, you know, there's got to be something that I'm not remembering, or maybe I'm misremembering, you know. And so there's that, but I really can't do that with this one. And the one thing that I'm so thankful that happened while we were there is that we had somebody that was sober. We had somebody that was sober that experienced the same things right there alongside us. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's put into our brain of like, there's 9 people there. I don't want to be the 1 out of 8 that remembers the whole thing wrong, and then be so-called the weird one that remembered the things differently. And I think that's programming we grow up with. But Like you said, they said it too. And I don't
Yep.
know. I've always had a good memory. I'll have 9 people be like, that didn't happen that way. And I'll be like, yeah, it actually did.
Hmm.
You know, and we all know somebody that has the worst memory that, it changes every time they say it. But
Yep.
yeah, I've heard this story probably 3 times now. And it's the exact same details and the exact same, um, sequence of order. And I love this story, man.
Well, and the once you experience something like that, or even if you haven't experienced something like that, but you're into the subject enough, you're always on the lookout when you're out in the wilderness, no matter where you are. I mean, even out here in Hawaii, where they say this is like one of the one states in the entire United States that doesn't have any sightings, or if it does, there's maybe a couple, and we have things out here like the night marchers. I don't know enough about them to go into full detail, but we have stories of different cryptids out here and different folklorish kind of creatures. And so yeah, even when I'm out here hiking in Hawaii, I'm keeping my eyes peeled, checking things out and looking for strange things to happen, because it's not only Sasquatch that's running around out there. I mean, we've also heard stories of portals and skinwalkers, and you yourself have done shows on this. I believe you've had different episodes covering all these different cryptids. So
Yes, sir.
yeah, once you've experienced something, or once you've gone enough down the rabbit hole, you're looking for it. You're open to it.
Yeah, you can't even walk through a town these days without doing the same thing.
Yeah, well,
It's good for people to always be on guard, not too much, jumping at everything, but always be prepared. We bring a lot of that to this channel as well. But what do you guys think about going to the next topic? Unless you got any questions for Nathan J, or any statements or anything like that.
No, I'm good.
Right on. Let's jump into it. So let's go into hauntings, boys. Couple questions here as well, Nathan, for you, my main. What do you think about the ghost hauntings topic? Like overall, what do you think about it?
Well, if you ask me, I believe that ghosts absolutely exist. I believe that hauntings do occur, and not all ghosts are bad or here to harm. I think some are here to teach important lessons or to protect. You hear stories of guardian angels, and but yeah, as far as do ghosts exist, once again, I don't have any tangible evidence that I can lay on a table and say, oh, here's a photo or here's a video, but I've had my own experiences. So yeah, I believe it's real. I think and I think certain places are more prone to that kind of activity, and certain people are more prone to that activity than others.
Hell yeah, we just did an episode on Ed and Lorraine Warren, and that's how we ended it. Was there are certain types of people that are definitely more prone to hauntings, possessions, and all that stuff. So next question, what do you think they are, and where did they come from, do you think?
Oh, that's a good question. That's another one I don't know that I've considered enough to. I can kind of shoot from the hip here. What do I think they are? Well, I guess because of my past experiences with magic caps and other spiritual substances, I feel like, in a sense, I mean, even down to like meditation and dreams, I feel like I've tapped into, quote unquote, the afterlife at times. And a lot of the feelings I come back with after these experiences, it's all right here. It's here. It's just it's at a different, I don't know if it's a frequency or a different dimension, or what the appropriate terminology is, but I think it's here. And when you pass away, your energy doesn't just disappear. It becomes part of everything. And so I think that, if you're talking about humanoid type, ghostly apparitions, then it's probably somebody who's passed away, who's either got unfinished business or hasn't accepted the fact that they've died. Because, I mean, I've never had a near-death experience close enough to say like this is exactly what I remember, but I feel like that is kind of what resonates as truth to me is any spiritual ghostly kind of experience is probably some kind of energy, whether good or bad, maybe demonic, but that's kind of residual, that's stayed behind or somehow bouncing between this reality and the next one.
Perfect. Yeah, some kind of energy. I always like to say we're energy beings, so it always makes sense when it comes from that.
Yeah.
I love your thought process on this. I mean, that was a hard question, and I love how you just fronted right through it, dude. You're awesome.
Thank you.
I love this. You have no idea how much I love this. So this one's going to be a really, really hard question, or it could be easy. I don't know. I think it's a really hard question. I don't expect you to answer it. I'm just going to ask it, though, okay? Why do you think it is also covered up by the government and they won't give the actual evidence behind these types of activities?
I think that's a tough question, but I think so. I don't even know if it's necessarily the government that is covering it up or who's behind it, because in a lot of ways it is socially acceptable. I mean, depending on what religion you follow, but voodoo, I mean, even not voodoo, but like Catholicism, Catholics, they believe in possessions and spirits, and when you talk to, it just depends on who you're talking to. Some of them are very accepting of it, and they're very matter of fact about it, and you see like, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen the videos of people on YouTube where there's a priest up there shouting and screaming, and people walk up and he'll brush his coat over them or tap them on the head and they all collapse and start convulsing on the ground. I mean, ask those people what they think about ghosts. They'll be like, oh yeah, I just got done exercising, Franklin out of me last weekend on Sunday. So, I mean, in a sense, though, why isn't it being taught about in school, and why isn't it more openly discussed amongst all people? Is probably because if we understood that, and if it is like a government kind of cover up, I believe it'd be because if we understood that there is an afterlife, we have some sort of authority figure giving us quote unquote proof or validation, then people wouldn't be as afraid. And fear is what controls people. Fear is one of the most common tools to control the masses. And if people aren't afraid to die, or people aren't afraid to lose people, just imagine how troublesome they could become.
So if we knew the truth, once again, just like the Sasquatch topic, we wouldn't be able to be controlled.
Well, it'd be a hell of a lot harder to. Yeah.
For real. That's crazy. That is. I was writing that question up, and I was like, why? Because I mean, it's not the government's job, but you'd think that like looking at the UFOs now, they're like pushing this and pushing that. It's like, why don't you go back down to ghosts? Why don't you, all your technology you have and your professionals and all that taxpayer dollars, why don't you explain that to us first instead of calling everyone a liar?
That's right.
That's interesting.
Well, and somebody's developing this technology when it comes to like I don't know, is it EMF or what is that? The different little frequency
electromagnetic
readers?
Frequencies. Yes, sir.
Yeah. There's somebody's developing this kind of technology, and they're doing a pretty good job. You got the sound boxes or whatever that these things are communicating through, and I mean, even you can go back to like ancient times where, ancient, I'm using that word very loosely, but like Ouija boards. I mean, people talk. These are tools to connect to the afterlife, the spirit realm. I mean, even tarot cards, which are, funnily enough, becoming very popular nowadays, very mainstream to explore with this whole woke movement. I mean, I hate to include the spiritual tools in with that movement, but
oh no, go ahead.
A lot of people are kind of gravitating towards that topic, or that topic.
Yeah, well, I like to say today's Ouija board is the cell phone.
Yeah, that's
It's
wow.
it's just a tool, and it only works on the energy of the person using it. You know, and
Never thought of that, but
AI.
that's actually great.
Yeah, I like to say that AI is artificial intelligence, and demonic beings are created artificial intelligence.
Hmm.
And there's possibility of possession through technology that it's trying to bring it, instead of just a Ouija board with the letters, they're trying to bring them into a system capable of controlling things that are actually working around us. And now people are putting in smart this, smart that, smart, everything in their house, and it's all run by AI.
Right. Which now, if you look at the articles coming up about Google, and I don't know if Microsoft is involved in these same kind of topics, but they're talking about these AI and algorithms and different technologies are becoming sentient and they're self-aware, and it's kind of cruising along the line of what we're doing ethical anymore and
Mm-hmm.
morally okay. I
Yeah.
don't know exactly how to say it, but are we messing with something that realizes it's alive, that can almost be classified as a sentient being?
Right. Well, we created the Ouija board, and the thing that talks on the other side of it, we didn't create. It's
That's right.
using our creation. So, I believe that we created like AI or the technology that we did, but we didn't create the thing that's making it sentient. Is what they're calling sentient. I think that's like you know what I mean? Like the Ouija board, the thing on the other side is sentient. I can't say that word for
Sentient.
some
Yep.
reason. Sentient, and is talking back to you on the Ouija board. And we create this kind of code that can respond in certain mathematical ways, using equations and all this stuff. However, then it becomes sentient and starts, it was years ago, they had different AIs creating their own language and talking to each other in a language we couldn't understand. Very creepy.
Well, and you know what else is always, the common denominator with the what is it, the Ouija board and like the tarot cards is, well, especially with the Ouija board, is these sentient beings are relaying messages and telling us things that nobody should know. Nobody should know the answer to these questions other than ourselves. And somehow, whether it be the cards or the board and whatever spiritual energy is connecting to these things, it's delivering messages that are very personal. And it's like, how did you know that? And of course, then when with the Ouija board, it's typically with 2 or more people, and they're always looking at the other person. Are you screwing with me? And it's like, no, I'm not. And so it makes you really wonder. I'm saying a lot, but it makes you wonder what's behind all this. What's driving it?
Exactly. So, Nathan, I hear that you do have some experience with hauntings / ghosts / demonic activity, and we would love to hear it if you would.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just jump right into it. So, I would say this took place probably around like 2011 or so. And back then, I was, in a lot of ways, a different person. Into different things, believe different things, and willing to do a lot of different things than I am now. And I guess that's all part of life. But regardless, carrying on with the story. So I was living with this woman at the time, and we were into tarot cards, which, and I guess in a sense I still am. It's once you open yourself up to certain things and you see that there's power behind these things, it's kind of hard to ever just move on from it. So anyways, we were into, crystals and the energy, movement and meditation and all that stuff. And so opened some doors. I'm not sure exactly, but my experience was when I was sleeping. And so I was asleep one night, and I was in this house, which I can recall kind of resembled the Amityville horror movie house, I guess you could say. Like And so anyway, that's what I kept thinking while I was in this dream, is this is like an Amityville horror kind of house. And so anyways, I'm walking upstairs into this hallway, and I look in this room, and all of a sudden I felt this energy just come super fast and hit me right in the chest. And when it hit me, it pushed who I am, it pushed Nathan like almost into a third person perspective, kind of like, a video game, third person perspective video game. It felt like that. It pushed me out. And then all of a sudden my body starts going. And it was the most uncomfortable, horrifying experience I've ever had when it comes to nightmares. Because I was no longer in control. In dreams, people feel like at times they're not in control and they kind of just go with the flow. But this was blatant in your face. You are not in control of your body anymore. And what ended up happening is this being was marching me down the stairs into this basement. And I picked up these paint cans and I walk back upstairs, down the hallway, and I go into another room and I start all over the walls, almost in like a very disrespectful manner, like screw you to whatever else was residing in this house. And I hair standing, tingly feeling kind of all over me after that, because I'm trying to fight whatever's inside of me, provoking something else, all within this creepy ass house during a nightmare. And it got to the point where I started hyperventilating, and I woke myself up. And when I woke up, I was just soaked in sweat and like breathing heavily and kind of panicking, because I thought I was possessed, and I didn't know if I still was when I woke up. I was still trying to grasp, when you sleep and sometimes you wake up and you're so disoriented. It's like, what day is it? Where the hell am I? That's what I had going on. And so anyways, I got a grip, and I was so scared I couldn't go back to sleep. And luckily I only had a couple hours left until my alarm would have gone off anyways. So I just got up and I was like, forget it. I'm not going to go back to that, whatever that was. And so I ended up, when my girlfriend at the time woke up, I told her about it, and she's like, what do you think that means? I said, I don't have a clue. I wish I did, because it was horrible. So anyways, the following day proceeds. I go to sleep that night. I'm back in the damn house again. And I'm walking, for some reason, back up the stairs, up into this hallway, and the spirit, all of a sudden I feel it come into me again. But it happened when I turned into another room. I sat in this room next to my girlfriend at the time on a bed, and I felt this thing push its way right back into me. And again, I'm like struggling, I'm fighting, trying. And of course, Dream Nathan, like the body of Nathan in the stream, is just sitting there casually, while Nathan's, kind of energy or whatever is struggling for control of his own body. And I turn and look at my girlfriend at the time, and she's like, Nathan? And then it responded, yes. And she's like, you're not Nathan. And then she gasps and starts screaming the most horrified, awful, blood-curdling kind of scream, like she was like panicking, freaked out, mortified. And so then I got just a moment of control, and I turn, and there's a mirror in front of me, and what I see is this shape-shifting, creepy ass face. I can't even describe it. Part of it was like an older, maybe from like the 1800s style, like, kind of like bearded, scraggly, dark looking. It was creepy. I really can't go into too much detail about what it actually looked like, but it was horrifying. And in that moment, I realized I'm not in control. There's something in me, and I'm now looking at it. Not only do I feel it, I can see it. And same thing. She's panicking, backing up into the wall, scrambling back into the wall. I start hyperventilating again, and I woke myself up in the same situation, hyperventilating, freaking out, soaked in sweat. And so at this point, I said, you know what? I actually woke her up, and I said, I had the same dream again, and I am about ready to start crying. It's freaking me out so bad, because it was such a real experience. There was nothing dreamlike about it at the time. When it happened, I thought this was really happening. And so I decided the only thing I could think of doing was, one, look into like I had a book that was on ghosts and like popular hauntings throughout the ages, and started kind of reading up on that and possession. And then I decided to pull out my tarot cards and do a reading on myself and ask these cards, what is happening? Why is this happening? And how do I stop it from happening? And I can't tell you exactly what cards I pulled because I don't remember, but I remember the gist of the message was, you are being challenged right now. You're basically going through a trial of being fighting for control in your life. And the only way that you're going to be able to overcome this great darkness is if you stop running from it and you face it. You stand your ground and you face it. And at that point in time in my life, I was a huge people pleaser. I was, in a lot of ways ending up in really bad situations because I wouldn't speak out, or I would, just kind of go with the flow. And so in a lot of ways, this experience and the message I was receiving from the cards related to what I experience in my daily life. And so I was like, okay, I guess if this happens again, I'm going to have to face it, because I feel this, feeling of powerlessness and lack of control when it happens. Why don't I try to really fight back this time and say, no, you're not welcome into my body. Some people, Christians will say, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, or, they'll say the Lord's Prayer. There's different ways of, kind of pushing that energy away. But at that time, I was basically just going to make an attempt to stand my ground and fight for my life. And so here we go, day 3, go to sleep. And believe it or not, I'm in the same damn house again, but this time I'm in the basement. And I'm walking through this scary ass dark basement. You can almost see like the moon glowing through like the ground level windows that are, in the room. So it's not pitch black. And at the end of this hallway I'm walking down, I see 4 eyes on the ground, 2 on each side. And basically, when they stepped out of the darkness, it was 2 Doberman pinchers. And then I see this same demonic-looking figure, that same thing that I saw in the mirror, step out of the darkness as well. And I turned to run away, but it was like in that moment, I remembered in my dream, you need to face this. You need to stand your ground, and you need to face this. And so I turned around and, I locked my legs, and I said, you will not tonight. It's not happening. And I screamed, and I just did this like, ah! And when I did, it was like the sound waves reverberated the walls, and these dogs, right at that point, he released these, what I thought were dogs, at me, and they just like got flipped over and rolled backwards. And I saw the same kind of sound waves hit this demonic creature, and it just dissipated into thin air. And in that moment, I felt this huge like sigh of relief, like a weight had been lifted off me all of a sudden. And then I, believe it or not, I woke up, and I was just like, I wasn't hyperventilating, and I almost felt like proud of myself. Like in that moment, first of all, I was shocked because 3 nights in a row having this same dream, same setting, same experience, and finally overcoming it because I sought counsel from cards that told me you need to stop running from your problems and you need to stand up for yourself. It was almost as if this quote unquote possession or demon or whatever, like it was trying to teach me a very important life lesson. And I got it. I got it on that third try, third time's a charm. And that's exactly what happened. So when I woke up, I of course woke my girlfriend up, and I said, I freaking beat it. I can't believe it. This is what happened. I told her what happened. It was kind of a proud moment for me, and I've never forgot it. It's 2011. I still remember it clear as day, exactly what happened. And ever since then, I've kind of carried that message throughout life. And I people please to an extent, I think we all do in some way or another, but I've definitely learned to draw lines in the sand and say, this is where I stand. And, this is, what am I trying to say here? This is kind of like my, anyways, don't cross the line in the sand. This is who I am. And if you don't like it, then we'll hang out with somebody else kind of deal. I stopped people pleasing, and I carried that defense for myself on throughout my life until now.
That's absolutely amazing. And that's an absolutely inspiring and amazing story, dude. Parts of it sounded like almost astral projection, but there was for sure definite meaning that was actually real. Like I've had situations close to that. Some of the stuff you were saying totally corresponds with some, events that have happened in my life as well. That's crazy. And like, good news, everybody, you totally beat it. How good does that feel, dude?
It feels great. It feels good because had I not beat it, there's probably, that's the kind of stuff that makes people go crazy. That's the kind of stuff that people will say the voices told me to, because they never overcame that kind of moment. You
never let them take control.
That's right.
I never
did.
They never implanted themselves permanently inside your fucking mind, heart, and possibly soul.
That's right.
That's crazy. In a good way. That's badass, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went through some stuff like that too. That's awesome.
I guess the best way to explain the feeling of powerlessness that I felt at times when it would come into me and take over and win those first 2 nights was when people talk about sleep paralysis and almost like they can't move. They can't, they're being held down by something. That is the closest thing I can relate it to, is that sleep paralysis. But, well, I was asleep, I was dreaming, but while I'm dreaming, believing this is a real experience, not being able to move, feeling like something else is in control of me. And I think that was the scariest part, because I was no longer able to, be in control of my actions. What if something happens, and who's going to believe me? There's a million things that run through your head in that situation. And
it sounds like astral projection.
Okay.
How clear was everything? That's the one thing is how clear it was.
Yeah, it was clear. It was so clear that I didn't think I was dreaming, And I got to the point where I'd hyperventilate, wake up hyperventilating, thinking it's still going on,
It's interesting that you entered a different place and it was the same place each time. So it's almost like if it was astral projection that you were summoned or forced there for some reason, like it did have some sort of hold on you at a certain point. Astral projection, when you do it, it's literally being completely awake is what it looks, everything, you know what I mean? But how you describe with astral projection a lot, I'm not one, but the people that can do it regularly or whatever, they know. But people that accidentally go into it, or the first couple times that they do it, one of the big things is not being able to control your movements. Like you feel heavy and you're like, you can even be dragging your body is what it feels like. And then your vision is not as good. Everything's clear, but it's almost like you're squinting hard to see, like you're almost blind. And yeah, lots of stuff in that, but not being able to control yourself and or you know what I mean, like in the way that you wish to. Lots of people have dreams where they're like trying to fight somebody and you're getting your ass kicked, and you're like punching in slow motion. But the way you describe it of being pushed out of yourself almost is, it's like, it sounds a lot like it.
Yeah, I was pushed into like a viewer's position, like you're going to sit in the passenger seat of your own body.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's it. Most times you just wake up, you're like, what the hell is going on? I've never turned around and looked at my body or whatever. People say they can do that. A couple times I've drugged myself across the carpet. Not being able to see a lot.
I've had experiences where, and I'm sure we all have, where you are almost in between sleep and awake. Your eyes are closed, but you feel like you can see what's going on around the room.
Yeah, that's where you get there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how you get there. It's in between that. Yeah.
Isn't that something else? And it's really crazy because it's like, I know my eyes are closed, but I'm seeing so crystal clear. And that's another thing that kind of brings me back to the magical caps that we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast here. Is I've had an experience before where I closed my eyes. I was actually having this experience with my sister and that same ex-girlfriend. And I closed my eyes and I looked at my sister, who I hadn't seen in many years, which was kind of the coolest part of this whole endeavor. But I close my eyes and I see a green energy outline of like a human embracing or hugging a pink energy, which basically represented me hugging my sister. And so I opened my eyes and it was clear as day. when you close your eyes sometimes on that, it's like you didn't close your eyes. You're in a whole nother realm of mind kind of stuff going on. So anyways, instead of telling my sister that, what I told her is, you wouldn't believe this. When I close my eyes right now, I can see myself clear as day holding on to you. And I said, you try. And so she closes her eyes looking at me and she's like, that's weird because when I do it, I can see a green energy holding a pink energy. And Matt, tell you what, my jaw hit the floor. And I'm like, well, how does that happen? How does that happen? I didn't tell her that I saw a green energy holding a pink energy. What I told her was, I see me holding you, embracing you. And then she relays the same thing that I saw. So I'm trying to, all excited, tell her, no, I actually saw the same thing you did. It's crazy. There's definitely more going on that we are not being told about. And it's
Almost
really sad.
certainly. We're all energy beings, is I think
That's right.
Where it all goes to. Crazy.
Spiritual beings having a human experience.
Right? And why are they hiding it?
So have you guys watched the latest Doctor Strange movie?
I haven't.
Not the newest one. I heard it was really woke.
So they had a concept in that movie. Sorry if I'm gonna spoil the movie for you, but it was the idea that when you go into your dream state, when you dream, it's actually an you in which it's either you're experiencing what they're going through in a third of what, and you're watching what's happening. It's so like for example, the dream that you're having, Nathan, that could have been a person in another universe, another version of you that is actually experiencing that, and since you're going to sleep, you're partaking in their life. That's the whole I guess the whole concept of what they're trying to invoke with the multiverse in the Doctor Strange 2 movie.
Well, you know what's really interesting about that is then if we are going to sleep and influencing other versions of ourselves or other people through the dream space, then I guess that would lead to the same belief that when we're awake, maybe something is doing the exact same thing, experiencing our life through their dream space. And maybe that is that inner voice that we're tapping into. You hear in your head that's trying to communicate through its dream to you.
Yeah.
Dun dun dun.
I have another interesting story, and you can choose what you want to do with it, if you want to air it or not. But I can share with you if you guys have time. So the other day I shared this in our group. Jay already heard this one, but and I mean, forgive me because I'm probably starting to sound kind of like a Looney Tune here, but I know I'm with the right audience, so I'll just
sure, buddy.
Speak from the heart here. Okay, so I was in 8th grade, and you have your first quote unquote what you think is love. Really, what it amounted to was it was the first girl to show me her boobs, and that was important to me. So I thought I was in love. She ends up breaking my heart, and at that point, I had enough. I had been kind of shit on in certain ways and, in life. And I just said, you know what, enough's enough. Because I grew up very religious, and I went through my first communion, my confirmation classes, baptism, Bible study, all that kind of stuff. And so I knew a little bit about the Bible, and I would pray every night before I go to bed and pray on Sundays for forgiveness and, the whole shebang. And by this point, when I got broken up with and felt like my heart was in pieces, I was doing my nightly prayer, and I said, you know what, tonight I'm praying to Satan, and I'm gonna do this whole. Basically, I'll just jump to it. So I was praying to Satan, and I said, Satan, if you are real, if you give me good looks, confidence, charm, money, women, everything that superficial men believe is important to them, then you can have me from there. And it's kind of interesting because after that happened, I just opened my eyes, and I didn't do any blood sacrifices. I didn't have any, crazy experience right away. And I'll tell you one thing I did not do is I did not tell anybody. I was so ashamed because of my upbringing. I felt like stupid kid kind of thing. Like, what the hell did I just do? And nothing changed right away. Nothing changed. And so I just carried on with my life and buried that one down in the memory bank. And as I got older, things started happening, and girls started, kind of flocking to me, and I would find it so easy to talk to girls. And, I started getting into drugs and that kind of stuff and thinking that was important. So I was making money, and just kind of the things that I asked for started happening. They started coming to fruition. And I remember it kind of the dots connected to me one time, because I'd slept with this girl, and it was like a shameful one pump chump kind of thing. And she looks at me afterwards and she says, "That was the best I ever had." And I'm like, "What? You got to be kidding me." And then it is like my heart just sunk, and I'm like, "Oh no."
She liked you, bro.
Did I sell my soul? Oh my God. And so after that had happened, after I had this kind of aha moment, oh my God, maybe this actually happened. Every good thing in my life after that was basically me thinking, there was a part of me that thought, this is only happening because Satan is fulfilling his end of the bargain. He's giving me this because I traded my soul for these things. And so it got to the point where I was like, you know what? Fine. I accept this. I made a big mistake. And you know what? If I'm going to hell when I die, then I'm going to have a good fucking life while I'm alive. And so I just lived a very selfish lifestyle. Maybe I made a bunch of money, but it was perhaps at the expense of others. And, I did a bunch of drugs, but then I ended up having to suffer getting sober and going through the whole addiction process. Maybe I was with a bunch of women, but it's like everything was a catch-22. Yeah, you think you wanted this, but then once you realize the cost, or you believe that this is all because this is the payment, the reward for what you've done, then you can't appreciate it. It's like every time something good would happen, it was just another gut-wrenching feeling for me. And so I lived with that for many years. 8th grade, probably till about 2010, 2009, I had this experience. First of all, I had stopped using any kind of psychedelics because of the fact that I was having terrible trips. Every time I would end up seeing horrific things, I would be getting really depressed, and it was just not good. So I stopped. But then finally, after quite a while, I finally said, okay, I'm ready to do it again. So I took some magic caps, and my son's mother was kind of babysitting me at the time, and she ends up getting tired. It's probably about midnight now, maybe later, I don't know. And she goes to sleep. She falls asleep, and I'm sitting there talking to myself on the bed and having a good old time giggling. It was a great experience. And then I look up at my ceiling, and I had one of those textured ceilings, and I started seeing the freaking devil all over my ceiling, and I started panicking. And I look into this blanket next to me that's hanging up over my window, and I see the devil on the damn blanket. And I was freaking out. And I'm like, I cannot deal with this right now. And I'm thinking deep down, he's come to collect. This is it. And so the only thing I could think of doing in that moment was getting down and praying and like truly, truly calling out to God for help. Like, you have people who, need some help with their bills or whatever, and they're like, God, please help me. No, this was like life or death, fight or flight. I need you right now, God, please. This is what I've done. I took this, and I did it to seek a deeper understanding of who I am, what you are, what life is about. So please, God, help me. I'm seeing the devil, and I need you. And this was really crazy. So I'm laying on my back, praying to God, and all of a sudden this voice comes into my head, and it was like a soft, sweet, just like the most comforting voice you could ever experience. And it was telling me, Nathan, you did not sell your soul. I made you who you are, unique and special for a reason. I want you to question things. I don't want people to just blindly follow me because they feel like if they don't, I have a special place for them, afterwards if they don't. So I want you to believe in me because that's what you want. And you've never fallen out of my grace. I love you, and everything is okay. I'm getting kind of choked up right now. That experience was the most life-changing experience I can literally say I've ever had. It felt like a dark web, like a spider web, was instantly lifted off me. This monkey on my shoulders, this weight I had been carrying around my whole life, or the past however many years that was, had finally been lifted. And I wasn't sobbing, but there was tears just streaming down my face. And if my son's mother would have woken up and looked at me, I probably would have just been sitting there drooling, staring at the ceiling. But it was in my head, I was having a life-changing, transformative experience. So instantly I'm just crying out, thank you so much. Oh my God. And in that moment, I had this understanding that if I could be forgiven, as far as I understood it to be forgiven, for something that I thought was basically the ultimate sin, trading the greatest gift the Creator could give you, which is life, for superficial, materialistic things, then why would I ever hold a grudge? How could I ever not try to forgive anybody in my life? And so in that moment, I had finally decided to forgive my father, who walked out before I was born. I don't know my biological father, and I'd always harbored these feelings towards him. But instantly, I'm like, if my spiritual father can basically bring me back in and say it's okay, then I can try to understand and forgive my earthly father. And all these different experiences, I felt all this weight just being lifted off me. And then this voice comes back and it says, now that this has happened, do you want me to show you what heaven and hell is all about? And I said yes, in my mind. And it was like, poof, I'm gone. And I'm going through my memories like Scrooge with the Ghost of Christmas Past and all these that story. I can't remember what it's called, but with Scrooge.
Oh yeah.
And so anyways, I'm seeing all of these experiences that were absolutely horrible experiences and memories throughout my life. And then I'm seeing all these wonderful, amazing memories, and I'm experiencing them. I'm walking through them with this being. And it said to me, do you understand now? And I said, no. What am I understanding here? And it said, we all, as humans, everybody lives in the same reality. We could all be in the same room together, but we perceive it differently. We could be in the same room and I could be having the best day of my life and you could be having the worst day of your life. We're still in the same room, but we are perceiving our realities differently. We're perceiving heaven and hell into our daily life. And it kind of ties into karma and all these things, and starting every day is a chance for a fresh start and, making better choices. But that karmatic wheel, that's turning and what goes around comes around, and so when you do bad, you attract bad. And when you do good, you attract good, and you perceive heaven and hell. And it was basically saying to me that heaven and hell is not a place of punishment or reward, because without one, you can't understand the other. If everything is all good, then how could you possibly appreciate or understand how good it is? Look at a spoiled child. All they want is more, 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 and they're snotty little brats, because all they get is good and tailored to them and catered to. And, it's just, you got to have the balance of good and evil. And so in this moment, I'm understanding that heaven and hell is not a place of punishment or reward. It is something that is there to teach us so that we can grow throughout our human experiences. And ultimately, once we've, finished our purpose on earth, then we carry on. And so, yeah, I came out of this experience, first of all, I felt like I was light as a feather. I felt like I had a fresh start, like I was born again. People talk about being born again and baptism. I felt like I had just cleared the slate. And not only for myself, but everyone around me. Everybody deserves a fresh start. And I became a different person. That's basically the best way I could say it. I finally could walk with a clear conscience and guilt-free and appreciate good things coming to me because I'm a good person and I'm doing good. And if bad comes to me, it's not because I'm being punished. Punished ultimately for that decision. I'm reaping what I've sown, and I'm learning and I'm growing. It's an opportunity. So, yeah, that's my other experience. And a lot of people talk about people selling their souls and making contracts with the devil. And I'm not trying to discredit and say that is not what happens. But from what I gathered from my experience, that's not what I did, even though that's what I thought I'd done.
Right.
There you go.
It's not ours to sell.
Yeah, essentially.
Damn, dude. No, you and your amazing ass stories, dude. The amount of inspiration. It's incredible. Thank you, Nathan.